Yeah, apparently in that one, it's a "Say No to Charlie." So, we need the Canadian sticker from Mr. Ballard, who I know is in the audience, but we need "Just Say No to Charlie" for our Canadian friends. Yeah,
But if you're in the
kind of
US,
loses it.
shouldn't you include the Charlie to avoid
Yeah,
confusion?
yeah,
Okay,
and honestly, you should there too, because most of the airports are within 50 miles of the border.
cool. Cool, cool, cool. We got a good group in the chat, as always.
Yeah. Oh, hey, you're giving away your secret name here. Yeah,
I still like Scotty is the best.
yeah, yeah.
And I didn't know what it meant till you said it last week.
Am I not on air?
You're
we
on
are.
there.
Yeah.
Am I on air?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
I'm the
makes
only
you
one
think
without
you're
the
not?
sign.
Oh yeah. Sorry, you got no sign. You
How
also
do
have
I
no
know?
map. No map. That's
No map. Oh yeah, you guys
How are
both
you
have
in?
maps and
Do,
on-air signs. I
do
don't know
you
why.
even know where you are right now?
Are you actually a pilot?
Yeah.
Can you find yourself without a map?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Hey, Dominic was hitting me up in my chat yesterday, or my DMs yesterday. Yeah, and
Nice.
Wendy's here. Got all my West Coasters. So
yeah.
Yeah.
West Coast. I loved your video, Ted.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's
we can talk
yeah.
about it on the what you call it, podcast.
Oh,
The what?
we're doing a podcast?
Who?
I mean, let's just see what happens, right? Like if we just,
Yeah.
I don't know.
We're drinking Macallan tonight, so it should probably go pretty well.
We accidentally a podcast. Yes.
Oh, you know what? Let me go get a beverage and I'll be right back.
Okay.
Can you do it during the intro? Oh, wait.
Can I do what?
I didn't know if he could get it in time for the intro. So I am drinking Triple Jam from Blake's Hard Cider. It is excessively sweet. I was trying a couple of weird ciders. The other one that I have is basically pumpkin spice latte cider. It's not right. It's just pumpkin spice cider. But I just had to pour them down the drain. I was like, I just can't do it. So
hit it.
Yeah. All right, let's go.
Welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast. What is it like to become a pilot in midlife? The challenges are unique, but so are the rewards. Hosts Ben, Brian, and Ted talk learning to fly, growing as pilots, and the joy of flying to destinations. The purpose of the podcast is not to teach, but to share knowledge and experiences. You definitely should not take any advice too seriously from an aviation podcast that uses terms like icing on the vegetables. Okay, checklists are complete. Let's get the show started.
Hello and welcome to episode 105 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast. I got the right podcast this time. Tonight, we're going to be doing a little spring planning and just chewing the fat, as they say. My name is Ben. I am a certificated commercial pilot with an instrument rating in the Atlanta metro area. Fly a Cessna 182, I like to call the Beast. We are here to share our experiences and the challenges of flying in midlife. Whether you're a seasoned pilot, training for a rating, or just thinking about starting in aviation, we'd like to think of this podcast as your aviation companion and your weekly dose of aviation inspiration. Tonight, joining me, as always, my friend from Nashville, which is the home of the Bachelorette Super Charlie. He flies a Cherokee 180 named Lucy, and his name is Brian Siskin. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, and welcome back from turkey times and all that. So excited to be here tonight, and looks like we got a good room too.
Yeah, we got a great room. Also joining us tonight, as always, based in Portlandia, flying a flight design CTLS. We like to call it the Egg. Our friend, sport pilot extraordinaire, Ted. How you doing, Ted?
Hey, I'm doing good. Yeah.
Good. You found a way to get up even in that Portland weather.
A couple weeks ago when I did the video you're talking about, but
yes.
have not flown in the last week, and we'll talk about that in the show.
Okay.
Great weather and have not flown.
Oof. It's getting to be that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tonight it's an information whiskey, and we thought we'd tackle a couple of different topics. Maybe an event in the spring that we can banter about, and maybe get some suggestions from our listeners, those from the live chat. We did have a review this week that I'd like to read if I could. This is from, excuse me, Chad W., who joined us at the Landomatic level. He says, midlife student at 48. He's from Middle Tennessee. He started out very similar to Brian. He got his late father's flight bag a few months ago from his uncle and unlocked a passion I've never seen. 65% through ground school and flying 2 to 3 a week. Great content, guys. I've been playing catch up from episode 1. Chad, we're glad you're with it. That's a cool story, and that does probably resonate very well with you, Brian.
Yeah, just it's funny when I saw that, my first thought was, it doesn't make any sense, but my first thought was, oh, I want to reach out to that guy and tell him that that's actually what happened with me. But that's what he's saying, right? So it's like my brain just skipped when I saw that. It was awesome to see. So
Well, Chad, this comment is just for you. Nobody else listening. He's going to be listening. This is going to be so weird. Do you know that Brian has a video about his dad's flight bag? It's from a while ago. So if you're kind of new to it, go back and find his dad's flight bag video.
yeah, or maybe I don't know where my father's flight bag is anymore, and we have the same father.
Well, I can tell in his profile picture there may be a little bit of a resemblance there. Who knows?
Oh.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, yeah, so I'm super excited about tonight's episode. If people are not familiar with the format of our information whiskey episodes, Ben, do you want to give them an insight as to what information whiskey means for us?
Well, what it means is we all drink some form of alcoholic beverage during the podcast, and we talk about whatever is on the top of our minds. We have a couple of things that we want to kind of elicit feedback from our listeners, both from the live stream and from the audio only audience. We've got some feedback, and we want to talk about what's been on the Discord, just kind of different things. And so I think we should probably kick it off with you helping us out with the housekeeping, Brian.
Yeah, let's just knock that out. We are grateful for all of you for making this the best pilot community that we know of. A positive space where we share everything from training experiences, shared personal minimums, tackle ownership challenges, review flight plans, and best of all, make new aviation friends. You can connect with us. Join our Patreon community from $1 a month. That's 25 cents per episode. You can access exclusive content and our Discord community. And for those who don't know how to just use Discord, we'll get you plugged in. We've had we're used to fielding inquiries. So 10% of our Patreon supports Freedom Aviation Network's anti-human trafficking efforts. Please go check them out, freedomaviationnetwork.org. You can watch us live on YouTube, Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern. Share your stories with us. We love to hear your feedback. You can always hit us up at midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com. When we read everything, and then Ben hides it, and then we find it. And you might hear yourself on the show.
Despite my best efforts.
And for everything Midlife Pilot Podcast, community, feedback, merch, and more, dad hats, all of that, visit midlifepilotpodcast.com.
Yeah. The
Ted,
dad hats
do you want to hit the new supporters for the week?
Yeah, I will. Yeah, those dad hats are pretty popular. Ben's wearing his right now, but it's basically a casual baseball cap. It's rather than having a real stiff front to the cap, it's an actual wearable one. So they definitely hit the name correctly with dad hats.
Can I make a quick comment here?
Yeah,
Hats are very important to folks that are, let's say, follically challenged like me. And when you have the really soft fronts, it's very nice on your forehead, and maybe that's why they call it dad hats. But this is a really good one. So I just wanted to,
Yeah.
for all those dads out there that have similar hairlines that I do, this is a good one for you.
Aren't you giving up a couple of knots though?
It's worth it. Comfort over speed.
Okay.
Are hats the high wing equivalent for humans?
What are the gap seals for? No, so
This is going to go off
Yeah.
the rails. Really,
I think it already has. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
that's
So
right.
back to
Let's-
Patreon.
Yes.
Yeah. So we've got 2 new supporters this week. At the Landomatic level, we have Chad W, who we talked about above, and at the Beast level, Beast Stole Kit level, we have Blaine K. And really appreciate having those new supporters. The Discord community has been maybe more active lately than I've had trouble keeping up with it. But there were a couple of threads this week that I thought were interesting, and one of them we'll probably talk about later. The first was Alpha Juliet Foxtrot got the ASRS, basically a receipt in the mail. So an ASRS is when you fill out the form that says, I messed up, here's what I did. Hopefully by confessing, I won't get any trouble for it, but this is in order to make safety better. And it's done to NASA. It's anonymous, but they give you a kind of a tracking code, and it always comes in email or in physical mail. So it has a NASA return, stamp on it, has their logo and everything else. So he said, I'm an astronaut, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah. That's what he told his significant other, I think.
Yeah.
What is this letter from NASA? Well, I'm an astronaut now.
Yeah. Last week was Thanksgiving, and Arrow Grizzly showed a picture. He zipped over to Vegas with his son, and they flew over and then stayed there over Thanksgiving, which was fantastic. And there's been a big discussion about engine monitors. It's been going on for a couple of days, but various models of them and whether they fit certain bezels or not. And yeah, I'm
by the way,
engine monitors, but yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Let's talk about engine monitors for a second. Let's just. It's the only thing more dangerous to talk about is leaning, but I will say I find it fascinating to see the perspectives of engine monitor people versus people that are in my strata, which is my plane has no EGT, no CHT, no nothing. And so, of course, my plane would be a fantastic plane for an engine monitor system because then I'd have at least any insight into what's actually going on. And not to bring leaning into it, but it's like, it's been really interesting to go through the deep dive of all of the Mike Bush conversations. And then you get to the little Q&A sections in the back of them. And then finally, I heard one not long ago where somebody said, it was like almost like I had written the question. It was like, hey, I don't have any of that stuff. And so, what do you do for leaning and for engine monitoring and all that if you don't have those things? It was just great because it was exactly what I do, which is, well, then you just need to do what the POH says and be full rich up to 5,000 feet or whatever, it's like, and you're just going to be, and you just lean until it stumbles and then put a little back in. And that's about all you can really do. It was just amazing.
So let's just keep in mind, it's kind of what you do when you do have those engine monitors.
Sure. Yeah.
With maybe a little bit more precision. That's all.
Well, I heard an interesting conversation about that from, I guess it was I think it was on the Ask the AMPs podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And what they were talking about was kind of the hysteria that engine monitors cause for pilots, and then what that means that they go to their mechanics with. And, it's just an interesting thing because I've heard and talked to a lot of mechanics about this. I mean, of course, have insight. It's a good thing. It's better to have insight than not. But there's also all these kind of corollary things that I see coming up. But one of the things I thought was interesting is they were talking about how the Like there's certain gauges and there's certain readings and there's certain things that we've never, until engine monitoring happened, there was never a number even assignable to it, whatever parameter. So now people are hung up on these numbers, and not only hung up on the numbers, but to the specificity of the actual number. And so now people don't realize that there's an option in the JPI or whatever to round things off, or to, I just find it interesting how they're trying to find a sweet spot of monitoring and awareness, but also you got to relax with the numbers and maybe be a little looser, a little rounder with some of these things. It's just an interesting, to me, there's just a larger play of kind of control versus accepting the unknown on some level, psychologically, that I just see playing out through the engine monitor conversations. And so when I see people going to town on all these, like, well, I'm going to do this crazy, engine monitor, or I'm going to do this one that's crazy. It's like, I'm just over here like, I don't know what you got. Like, I'm just going to wait until the plane makes metal and then see what's going on.
I like our friend Luke of Luke's Landing has made the comment, ignorance is bliss. Siskind, they call him.
Good to have Luke in the chat.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It reminds me of riding big single cylinder motorcycles where that don't have much engages, and you need to shift because everything gets blurry, and that's how you know how many RPM you've got. And so you're kind of doing the same thing, and you don't need a tack on a motorcycle to figure that out. On the other hand, it can be useful. So I think there's, I mean, I love the data. But I also basically fly a computer. So that's, it's a difference, I guess.
That is true. And I love how, by the way, can we just bring up your video, the last one you just put out? I love the overlays. I love how you have ground speed and true airspeed now next to each other, so you can kind of see what's going on with that. But
I was flying in with a lot of wind, and the easiest way to kind of explain the wind when you're coming into land is to put up 2 gauges. So it's a lot of data or a lot of numbers, but when you're coming in at 60, but over the ground you're doing like 38, it really helps explain the difference in the sight picture.
I would like to, maybe as a bonus episode or for the Patreon members, Brian, you and I do a mystery science theater on that video, because there was a lot of discussion about geese and them being in debating whether they should cross the runway. I don't know. It just seemed like that one would be a good candidate for that.
That's a lot going on. Yeah.
There was a lot going on. It was a great video. I was watching you land, and I know you were trying to set up your AOA and that you had to tweak it a little bit, but I was looking at your indicated and your true, and you're not touched down yet, and you're doing like 38 miles an hour or 38 knots, whatever it was. But it was, I was thinking a Volkswagen Bug is probably going the same speed as that.
I know. It's
which I think is cool. I mean,
right.
It's nice to be able to go that slow, and
like there's electric bikes that go that fast.
Yeah, exactly. So there were a couple of those landings that I was playing with almost stalling it in to land from high up, and that's where I was going at like 1.1 to 1.2 of the VSO speed. And on those, you'll notice that I always give it some throttle right before I land, because you're so close to the stall that you can't flare and arrest that descent. And I've had a few hard landings, so it's like I know now to juice it a little bit to try and clean it up. But those geese were funny because they just sat on the side of the airport for most of the day, and at one point they decided they wanted to walk across the runway. There was a trail of poop following about 100 geese across the runway, and then they were on the other side next time I came in. I was like,
brings new meaning to the phrase of greasing the landing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So sorry, that was a bad one.
Well, the spoiler alert, Ted, one of Ted's landings, you guys will see. If you're wondering what he thought about the landing, he cuts to an overlay of a slow spread of butter across bread in this video. It's so good.
Yeah, I
That
love
was
that you
funny.
timestamped to me in the comments. It was like, "Oh, that's, getting
Yes,
it back to
Time
me."
stamping the
Yeah,
time stamper.
exactly. Yeah.
that's right.
That's it.
But yeah, so
Oh,
no, that was awesome. And now, you guys want to hit anything else before we get into our main jam? Because I want to make sure we have time to sort all that out. Do you guys need to take a sip of anything, or how you doing?
Yeah, I was gonna ask how your Thanksgivings were. I mean, anything exciting happening with you guys?
Yeah, did not do any flying, and
Neither did I.
gotta get the no strut rebuilt on Lucy,
Oof.
because it's you were there the last
Yeah,
time I had it charged, and it's already out. So those seals need to get redone. So
yeah.
that's gonna get done hopefully this week. And thankfully everything's so miserably cold that it kind of doesn't hurt so much to not fly. But I'm trying to adapt right now to the whole and for you northerners and Wisconsin people and all that, like, we are the softest people down here. It's If it's below 35, the odds of me doing anything are very slim. So a couple
Well,
things.
I mean, we did our annual trip to Apalachicola, and I
I
chose
was
not
ready
to
for
Drink.
that.
fly. Yeah,
Time for a drink. Yep.
and my brother-in-law did take the airplane down, but I actually had no desire because the weather, the winds on Saturday and Sunday morning were 25 knots, gusting to whatever. And it took him a solid 2.5 hours fighting uphill, or finding the headwinds. It was direct
Oh,
on the nose, and yeah, it just felt like it was going to be bumpy the whole way up. And so yeah, the 6.5 hour drive wasn't as bad. I wasn't missing the plane as much as I thought I would be.
It's funny, like, I have been flying so many places that when I drove to where I drove to Chattanooga for Thanksgiving, and was kind of joining up with family after the fact kind of thing. So I came down on my own, and I drove the MR2, and I had so much fun. It was one of
Yeah,
those drives. I left Thanksgiving morning at 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever. It was still dark, and by the time I got into the mountains, it was low IFR driving. And it was so much fun. And then going up, there's a road that goes up Signal Mountain in Chattanooga that is just all hairpins and
yeah,
all this. And I was just, and there's always one other guy that's like in some kind of little hot hatch or something that wants to kind of get going. So we went after it, man. And we were both just screaming up the mountain. But I'll tell you what, man, driving a 1985 MR2, manual everything, on old mountain roads in the fog when no traffic around was so fun. I just had the best time.
now,
So if you're not gonna fly, then
yeah.
go hard.
Make the
what does
most
the
of it.
MR2 have for an engine monitor?
It has a tachometer. It has oil pressure,
Yeah.
fuel,
Is it
and temperature.
injected?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the beauty of the 1985 Toyota, and that's why I have two of them. Is they are the initial injected engines. So I have the Celica has the 22 RE that is injected, and then the MR2 has the the 1AGE or whatever that's injected. So
Yeah.
no carburetors to deal with, no carb ice.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Very cool. Ted, why don't we hit a
Definitely
few
not
of
a
the
fan of
comments?
carb ice. Yeah. We saw some comments earlier. I wanted to go back and look at those.
Yeah.
The first is from Steve S., who said, greetings, try not to miss any posts. Just finished cross-country solo at 58. Can't wait to
Oh,
finish and fly with my wife. Learning lots from everyone I can, including you all. I
that is
saw
awesome.
I saw XC solo at 58 as we were talking, and my brain read it as crosswind 58, and it just took me a while to process. Yeah. And Brian, you want to grab the next one here?
Luke says Dad goes out for cigarettes and gets his pilot's license and doesn't come back. So that's that's another thing you can do if you get one of our dad hats, is that you can role play this this dark movie that Luke is laying out for us. By the way, Luke has promised that he's going to deliver some audio segments for us, so we're going to see how that goes.
Okay.
But I'm more than excited because I mean, you guys have all seen his hot dog rant, and it doesn't get much better. So Ted, would you tell me,
Yes.
please, about your flying?
I have not been. So on Thanksgiving morning, I went to the airport and I thought I'd go and work on the plane a little bit. And it was really foggy. I'm like, that's fine. I'm going to be here for a while. I actually
You're in
went
Portland.
with my portable and walked out so that I was near the runway, and I was looking across and I couldn't see the tower, and I was talking to tower. It was so soupy. But I went to work on the plane, and my flaps on the plane have been it's like rotated or drooping about 10 degrees. So the flap setting in the plane may be 0, but in reality it's flying at about 10.
You got
And
saggy flaps?
I got safe. Well, I'm not going to say that. Um,
I'm leaving that one alone
yeah, but yeah, I've
because
been kind of stewing
I'd
over
have
it.
to comment on myself with that too.
Yeah,
I've got droopy
exactly.
flaps or droopy wing tips actually, but
Droopy wings. Yeah. Oh boy. Um, so I've been kind of chewing over it for about a week before that, thinking about what it was, and even if it was actually wrong. And I finally figured out that yes, they're not supposed to be that way. And so on Thanksgiving morning, I went and I was kind of looking through the plane and seeing a couple of adjustments if they need to be made or not. And I saw what the problem was, which was the motor that controls the flaps has a clamp on it to hold it in place. And obviously, the motor had slid in the clamp by maybe 3 inches or so. And then I saw why, which was the clamp itself was cracked. And
Oh,
it's it's plastic, but it has a flight design label on it. It is not something that you can buy over the counter. So
oof.
oh,
it was like, well, okay, I guess I'm not flying for a while. And so flight design opened back up today. And they said, oh, we do have one of those. It's used and you can have it. Like, great, I'll take it.
you
So
can have it?
yeah, well, no, for money,
Oh, okay.
they'll give it to me. Yes, yeah, for quite a bit of money for a little piece of plastic. But
Are parts hard to come by for those?
well, it's a rare enough plane that you hope that the parts exist in the U.S. That you don't have to go to Germany for them. So, because there just aren't many of them. So, and it's not like you can go to the junkyard and get a window crank off your 32 Studebaker and stick
Yeah.
it in the plane. So yeah.
Wow.
So because of that, the weather's been beautiful here. It's really cold, but it's been clear for about a week, and
Oh,
should
of
be clear for
course.
a few more days, and then the part should arrive. So yeah.
And then what's the process after the part comes, though? I mean, is it something that you can do and then get inspected, or how does that work?
They need to
Or do you
supervise
not
it.
want to talk about it? I was gonna say. Sorry.
This is
I'm
they
sure
will
it'll be
supervise
legitimate.
it or sign it off. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not something an owner can do. So yeah,
Understood.
understood.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
let's get
Peter
away from
Taratelli
this.
says 3D print one. Well, I actually thought if I couldn't get this part, I could design the part in for a 3D printer and then send it to China and get it made out of metal, which I've done with some parts for the GoPro refuels. I have a part that I've designed for that. So I know I could do that. And then I had a couple of friends with machine shops that offered to make it. So at least I had a backup if I couldn't get the one from Flight Design. But it takes a lot of engineering or engineering sign-offs to do that with
Yeah.
SLSA. So you can do owner produced for your certified planes. For ours, you have to get approval from the manufacturer, which just means paperwork. And I've done a couple of them, but if you can get the part, it's not worth it. So
Right.
yeah.
Got it. So Brian, why don't you set us up?
Yeah.
We we normally have a events and announcement segment, and we don't have any events planned. And thought maybe tonight we can start the conversation with that.
It almost sounds like, I don't know, guys. It sounds like we need an event.
We do need an event.
Oh,
Instead of
goodness.
events and announcements, we need to announce an event.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right,
Yeah.
Doug.
Well-
you had it backwards in the show sheet, so.
All right. So first, I just want everybody in the chat to know that this is about as open season as we ever want the chat to be. Please chime in. And we are going to be opening all of this conversation up. The bottom line is that all three of us, the only time that we for sure can all three meet in the same place at the same time to talk about anything is during the podcast. And so what we've decided to do with our information whiskey session tonight is use it as a podcast meeting to hash out what we've been kind of talking about, but we haven't been able to really arrive at anything. So let's get into it. We have had several fantastic events, midlife pilot podcast fly-ins. We did the first one in the Outer Banks. We did the next one in Nashville. Then we did one at St. Simon's. And then we did another one in Nashville this year. Yeah. Still this year.
Still this year.
Yeah. Huh.
And what's been happening over that progression is the podcast has continued to grow. The community continues to grow. And the last one that we did in Nashville, we were kind of overwhelmed with how many people came. And so it was fantastic, but it was also a time for us to take some notes on how do we want to do this the next time and how can we make this even better. It's a tough thing because it's flying, it's general aviation, and it's also just people and lives and schedules. And so it's really hard to get our heads around schedules and availabilities and, even down to the last minute, we don't even know if half of us can even make it to the things, right? So it's you do the best you can. But what we've learned is let's try and make these fly-in events as easy as possible, because even when we've had really good plans, external things have come in, like our compound getting sold out from underneath of us last year in Nashville, where we thought we were like, we need everybody in a centralized place. And so we got this whole compound of Airbnbs that were all stacked together. And then that whole array of homes and bedrooms and everything that had, that everybody had spots for, ended up being gone. So we ended up getting a block of hotel rooms and it all worked out fine. We had an amazing time this past year. And so we want to go bigger. We want to have even more people. And I know there's going to be some return people. There's going to be some people that came last year that don't come this year, all that. But we want to go as big as we can get. But it has to be logistically planned in such a way that, number one, you have to choose a location. That location has to be comprised of a kind of flexible set of variables. It needs to be able to accommodate people if they show up, or not be a big problem if they don't show up. It needs to have transportation. It needs to be a place, plenty of people flew in commercially to Nashville and then just joined us. It's not like everybody has to fly in just because it's called a fly-in. In fact, many people, there were people that drove, there were people that flew, people flew themselves. It's a hybrid of approaches to get together.
People fly to Atlanta to fly with me.
That's right. The only working plane. So
we had somebody fly down from Canada, or drive down from Canada, 8 hours.
Right. Yeah. So what we want to do tonight, if we can, is put a little dent in. Let's just give 15, 20 minutes to. We've got a few locations that we're considering. They may be good ideas. They may be terrible ideas. We want to start sounding these out, and we're going to lead you guys, the listeners, through what we're thinking about, why we're thinking about it this way. And I think that if there's any value that can be had, it is that even though we are planning a midlife pilot podcast fly-in hangout situation for a weekend, a lot of the thinking and a lot of the particulars, I think, will be applicable to anybody that's maybe just getting out there to start planning trips where you're going to meet up with other pilots, and do your own things.
Right.
And we've learned a lot of things in these flying scenarios so far, and each one has their own sort of charm, right? Even
Yeah.
though one was a particular pain in one way, it was really neat in another, or really we kind of got saved. It wasn't so terrible that when we had the one in the Outer Banks, it wasn't so terrible that when I had an issue with the plane, that there was a mechanic school on the field with a chief mechanic that was more than happy to sort me out and not even charge me. And then I ended up giving him a big donation to their school. So it was great. But anyway, so walking back from that high level, we've got 4 locations that we're thinking about so far. And the last thing I want to throw out to everybody is this. In the past, we've always made these fly-ins be around, okay, everybody's going to get there on Friday, and then we'll hang out Friday night, and then Saturday we'll do like a flying thing where caravans of planes will, we can mix and match, and we can go on some adventure to go to some cool place or whatever, and then come back and then have a big thing Saturday night, hang, and then do maybe a little bit more flying on Sunday, and da da da. Here's what the reality is. The reality is we just want to hang out. As much as it's great to fly with everybody, and we definitely want flying to be a part of it, we have learned that the proportionality of that is so much more on the just hanging out. So as much as it's great to fly and have it be around attractions and things, it's almost like the less the better. So anyway, that's my high level table setting for the whole thing. And then Ted, what do you think?
Yeah. So looking at the 4 or 4.5 fly-ins, we don't consider West Virginia one of those, although it had some cool perks. But when we think about those, there's some things that were great about each of those, and there were some downsides to them and things that we're trying to avoid. Outer Banks was a great location. The problem was that the housing was an hour away from the airport.
Well, no, the housing was a stone's throw from the airport, but an hour's drive.
Yes, sorry, same thing. Yeah,
island locations tricky.
Yes.
Yeah. So even something like that seems fantastic, there are downsides like that. This last time in Nashville was more expensive because of the block of hotels, and it was a bit of a drive. It was all right, but it was a bit more of a drive than we would have preferred from the airport. That was a great example, though, of choosing small flights on the day we're together, where you're not taking that day and you're flying 4 hours away and 4 hours back. Those were flights of an hour each way
or less
to a destination. Yeah. So
I
that
like,
was yeah.
I like Richard's figured it out. So we just need to establish a midlife pilot air park. We'll build some huts, a barbecue pit, and we'll just have it there every year.
If only we knew somebody in real estate that does air parks. Yeah.
There you go. Well, we'll just build our own.
The
No,
other
I
thing that I
agree
wanted
with
to
all of
say,
this.
the other thing I wanted to say was that there's a reason that we've gone to Nashville twice, right? The ones on the coast are great and they're scenic. Nashville fits one of the kind of implicit goals, which is for it to be accessible to the largest part of the midlife audience.
Central.
Generally speaking, there's a lot of people in the Midwest. There's a lot of people that are kind of
West
inner
Coast.
East Coast. And
It's really weird to look at Nashville on a map because you realize how it's actually very much in the middle of the country.
Yes.
But yeah.
So we go ahead.
If we did that, we would always end up in Ohio, right? Or in Illinois. And so you can't favor that over everything else. And so that's just one other thing to throw out there. And
I think it needs to be said, we are asking for your suggestions, but we're going to end up making a decision that we feel like makes the most sense. So we don't want to hurt any feelings by not choosing your suggestion, but we wanted to go out and throw out a couple of destinations that we've been bantering about. We're not sold 100% on any of these, but just throwing them out. And for the record, if you're a member, a Patreon member, and you have access to our Discord, we do have a midlife pilot map, and we have taken a look at that. And so, with that in mind, we thought about Tango 82, which is Fredericksburg, Texas, and there is a hotel on the airport. That was number one.
The Hangar Hotel.
The Hangar Hotel in
literally
Texas.
Hangar Hotel. And there's a little town there. There's another hotel or two near the airport. But that hotel is pretty big, right? Like dozens of rooms and some conference spaces. Yeah.
Maybe even could record a live podcast there.
Ours? Or
another one that we looked at was 09 Juliet, which is near and dear to my heart, but it's not centrally located at all, but it's a really cool spot and a lot of side destinations, if you will. And that's Jekyll Island, 09 Juliet. It's got transportation is not a problem, and there's a couple of hotels, 3 or 4 hotels on the island, and some good restaurants. So that's an option. Number 3 is I-73 in Moraine, Dayton, Ohio. And that one is close to the Air Museum in Dayton. You have Sporty's is not too far from there, as I understand it. It's a little more centrally located. And then we are looking at maybe Gulfport, Biloxi. Look at there, Nathan Ballard, Gulf Shores, Alabama. In that general area, I know Mike Alpha Golf is in our chat who attended the Nashville, and he's thrown out New Orleans lakefront, which is a beautiful airport. And again, I'm not opposed to that either. There's plenty to do in New Orleans, that's for sure. Let's just stay away from the first weekend of February.
Well, and in a weird way, there's actually too much to do in New Orleans.
Right.
Yeah.
But I will say that one of the things that we consider when we're thinking about these locations is we want people to come to our event. At the same time, we don't want to be responsible for anyone's happiness. And so if we have it in a place where there's enough other things going on, then what it allows to happen is that people can come with their families and do a destination weekend in, say, Nashville or New Orleans or wherever it happens to be. And it just so happens that they can, kind of divert over to our activities and all that. And it's done in more sort of concert with maybe a family outing that they're having or something to that effect. So there's that. By the way, there was down in the comments, there was, I think it was Wendy had a great question. And it was something around, will there be any workshops? Right. Or presentations. So without a doubt, one of the things that we have thought about that we have definitely not done in the past, because we are idiots and we don't need to be doing anything that is educational. But we have such a great network we have master CFIs and all these folks that have a lot of incredible knowledge. And I think it is entirely possible to come up with, and I think that, we might even be able to coordinate something where there's, with Nathan Ballard or some others that is really, really valuable. That's on the table. That we haven't figured that out yet, but I just want to acknowledge that that's a thought.
Erica from AeroSafe talk about weather.
Yep.
If we could catch RH or AG on an off day, get them out there. We can talk a little bit ATC. I mean, there are a lot of options. I have a friend that is a DPE who did my commercial, and he has asked me, anytime we want to use him on the podcast, we may do that on a episode, but he might be willing to come out and hang out with us for a weekend.
Yeah, I think as these events have gotten larger, we're realizing that one of the things that we're missing is something that is important to us on the podcast, which is to talk about safety, right? And that decision-making process is part of how we fly. And so having a weekend of fun and aviation should also involve having a discussion or two in there that's educational, and
what,
we haven't
what
done
if,
that in the past. Yeah.
what if we had a midlife pilot confessional booth and you just go in?
So let's take a step back. There was some education being imparted. It just wasn't about flying. It was usually in the hangs where we really get the education.
What if Nathan Ballard wore like a sort of dark robe with a sort of obscure hood?
No,
It's
how to fix, heads up. I mean, how to communicate with your fellow pilots in a game of charades, things like that.
yeah.
Okay, we're not
It,
doing team building.
no team building.
No.
Ryan Kruger says, so spring means what month? The Midwest has like 6 springs weather-wise.
Well, okay. Valid question. When are we talking about
question.
this, right? Yeah. So it depends on the location. But generally, we're thinking March or April.
Yeah.
Yes. That is generally the time.
I'm definitely a fan of April, just because it's getting out of the season that the Rockies are less safe.
Yeah.
If there's a possibility that I fly to an event, which who knows at this point. And also, I mean, the reason that we're looking at somewhere like Tango 82 is it is further west. Hopefully we can get some of the people that are further west than some of these previous events. On the other hand, it's actually not that close. I mean, West Texas is not the West Coast.
All right, here's the way I'll put all this. Whoever is the loudest, the squeakiest wheels of whatever region of the country, we will do the fly-in there. Because Ben and I are psychotic. We will fly anywhere.
Yes.
It doesn't matter.
I think I might be a little bit more psychotic than you, but thank you for including yourself into that mix.
Yeah. Like we don't have what you call it, limitations. So we will go anywhere. We don't care. We want this to be something that's fantastic for everybody and for as many people as possible. So midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com. Email us, harass us, be loud, and tell us where you want this thing to be. So the places we've talked about so far are Fredericksburg, Texas, Tango 82, 09 Juliet, Jekyll Island, India 73, Moraine, Dayton, Ohio, and Golf Papa Tango, Gulfport. We've heard otherwise. Do you want to add to the list? I don't know, Gulfport, Gulf Shores, New Orleans. I don't know. There's some kind of something maybe to that. But my concern is that our, sort of Wisconsin contingent will not be able to make it that far, even though it's awesome.
If only they had a large event that people go to every year in somewhere like Wisconsin.
Yeah.
In
that
July?
just causes people to,
just an idea.
Yeah. Maybe we could meet up at Oshkosh the last week of July and just have our own little fly in there. That airport won't be busy at all then, will it?
No, it'd be easy. Super easy logistics. There'll be the lodging will be so easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not opposed to going out west and taking my plane because that has been a bucket list trip for me for a while. And for me, personally speaking, April is a really good time of the year where I can take some time off from work. It's not going to be a weekend trip for me at that point. If it's in the West Coast, it's going to be more like a week to 10-day trip, which is fine.
Right.
But that's, we want to try to, again, appeal to the masses, and we're not going to please everybody, and we understand that. But I don't think anything's off the table at this point.
Let's talk about why I-73 came up on the list, though, specifically. I mean, it's a great kind of, for being central, it's a great example of that. But that came up because Mark, right?
Right.
Was talking to the I can't remember how it happened, but he was talking to the airport manager.
He was going up to Wisconsin, and he stopped there for fuel.
Yeah. So it's a pretty small airport. And the airport manager was very excited about the idea of having a meetup like this there. That is an example, actually, of something that would help, right? Having an airport that's willing, not not angrily charging, $21 a day tie down fees or something. That does
Yeah.
help. It's
No, it's true. We
one
would have
thing that
kind of run of
yeah.
we would have run of the place, and that means something. We figured out, like, when we were in a great place like Fairmont versus, yeah, like the St. Simon situation was awesome. Hotel on the field,
Right.
but it ain't cheap. Yeah, I don't know. Everything's just like everything else in aviation, Ben, right? It's trade-offs. But I think that I want to just hear I want to hear the creativity of the listeners. I want people to come up with what airport, where would everybody, like, if everybody can stay in the same either, compound or hotel or resort or whatever it is, the better. Is there food on hand? Like, is everything kind of self-contained? Where is that place? And it's not, like you said, Ted, just an obscene, $8 a gallon, kind of Delta charge fest.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of really cool places. I mean, there's a lot, and even up, just north of here, there's the Rough River, or there
Yep.
is
Kentucky, yeah. You know what the area code
Owensboro.
of that one? Yeah.
There's places that aren't necessarily exciting, but they're just Cape Girardeau is another place that is actually really cool. And there's it's a totally adequate airport and then some, with a really kind of an interesting history. And there's a great restaurant on the field, and there's always going to be things. So let's figure it out. And also, we need a space where people can commonly gather. That is
Yes.
not a restaurant where there's where wait staff is not annoyed that we're not turning over tables or something, right? We have to have a common space to do any of these panels or instructional things or whatever. So we've got to have a place with facilities for that. So, like, the I-73 is, they've got a clubhouse for that kind of stuff, so that's nice.
Definitely. So yeah, it's we could spend days on end researching airports across this country, trying to figure out where the ideal place is. So that's why we're reaching out to our listeners, because they know their areas better. And I'm hoping a couple of bells are going off while you're listening to this in your car, saying, this is the perfect airport for this. You know what I mean? And send us an email at midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com.
When you're the person that's listening that has the private airport with all of the amenities and you can just take care of everything, please contact us. We will work with you to help us. We need help. We have pulled this off in underneath the Bachelorette Super Charlie. We can pull this off anywhere.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you can tell, we're not going to meet every one of these goals. If so, you're going to the geographic center of the country. It would be one specific place every time. It's like, no, we're trying to kind of hit as many of these things as we can each time, and a little different each time. So
that's right. That's right. So that's the call out to everybody. Let us hear from you. Again, the email address is midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com. You can, if you're a Patreon, you can send us a message. We'll post something, maybe create a channel in the Discord server.
Yeah.
Specifically for this.
I like what Mike Golf is saying here. I'll fly anywhere to meet the group. Bunch of great options. If the decision is something in my neck of the woods, very happy to help coordinate housing and ground transportation, etc. Well, I guess we know where we're going.
Yeah.
It's done.
You brought up a good point, and someone else, or you just mentioned it, Rough River, Kentucky Dam, where they've got those cabins there, right there at it. There's not a lot to do around there, but to your point, Brian, just hanging out.
Yep.
And
and having an easy place to just kind of go around the patch with people, check out different planes. It's not a high 100%. Traffic area. You're not bumped up against Bravo or something, So yeah, Rough River, I think, is an interesting option for that. Kentucky Dam is not an option because it's just a runway. There's nothing there.
I got you. Sorry.
But Rough River is, it's a vibe. It's it's so it's there's nothing luxurious about it. There's nothing, but who cares?
Don't need luxury. None of us have been able to afford it, at least in this group, because all our money's going into airplanes, but that's okay. So, anything else that we need to cover tonight?
Yeah.
I think
can we talk about reading the room?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about reading the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian, we've been needing to talk to you. You're not reading the room.
There's something we need to we've been
It's really it's quite a bummer when your intervention is live on a podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was
So
premeditated.
Brian has 2 new videos out. Yeah, has 2 videos from the last week. The most recent one is called How to Read the ATC Room. This is going to get very circular because the Midlife podcast is actually in that video. So we're talking about it on the show we talked about it on, I guess.
Oh,
but that's
what's the midlife podcast?
I don't know. I think there is one.
Oh,
so yeah, that's a
I think
great
you're thinking
one.
of the Midwest Flying podcast.
Never heard of it.
It's the opposing Mid-South.
Yeah. And then
Experience with Joe Rogan.
Brian's other recent video is about personal minimums, and it's called The Art of Not Flying. And I wrote down 2 quotes from that. The first was, quote unquote, the spaces between the numbers, and also a collection of flights they never took. And those were the 2 of the kind of artistic phrases I liked out of that.
I'd like to make a comment here. I love how you narrate people's thoughts and their feelings into something that's very specifically important for the general aviation community. And I felt like you provided your audience with a very safety conscious message while expressing how we all feel about maybe not flying. It was very, very well done. It was done in your classic style, which I absolutely love. But I really liked The Art of Not Flying. Your commentary in it was really, really good.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I just I don't know. I just wanted to. I think that for anything that has a negative connotation around it in aviation, for instance, I feel like go-arounds kind of have this feeling with certain people where they are, for good or for bad, they're kind of these demarcations of less than optimal performance, or these markers of a particular falling short or a failure or something. Oh, it's a go-around, whereas I've really tried to have a mentality of being excited about the things that are otherwise considered negative or have a slightly pejorative. I don't know. This, you know what I mean, right?
I do. Somebody made a comment on one of the videos that I really liked, and he had commented that he put in his logbook it was like 0.2 hours of flying because he got in his plane and the winds did something different than what he was expecting, and he chose not to fly.
Yeah.
We don't, to your point, we don't put in our logbook when we don't fly, which, quite frankly, I would argue maybe a loggable item. Put 0 hours in, but here's why I chose not to fly, because our logbooks are nothing but a record of what we've done.
I love that.
And why shouldn't it be things that when we make decisions not to do something that makes us safer, why not record that?
Yeah. So for these no-goes, I just thought, wow, these are the, congratulations on the story that never happened and that you can't tell,
Right.
It's, yeah. The other thing about that video is, I saw somebody commented and they're like, oh, really? Nice application of film filter or whatever. It's one of those things where, like, on one hand, who cares that this person is saying this thing in the comments? And on the other hand, it's like, do you have any idea how unnecessarily bespoke this video is in terms of how much money it cost me to shoot Super 8 film and get it processed and scanned, and then to put that footage in there it's only going to be as good as Super 8 footage can be. It's pretty hard to keep that camera steady. It's a Leica. It's a really cool Super 8 camera, but it's still a Super 8.
To be clear, this is not a Super 8 look. This is an actual Super 8 camera.
Yeah.
Right. It's like
film.
It's actually film. And
we're
so
not going to explain what film is to anybody younger that accidentally is still listening to this podcast. But it's 3.5 minutes on a reel of Super 8, and it's
depending on how you shoot it. Yeah,
it's like $100+ of processing.
More than that.
Yeah.
Well, you get the processing and then the scanning, and then if you want it to be scanned at to be scanned at 2K or higher, then you really pay. It's totally worth it. I'm pretty sparse with how I use it, but it also just means that I have a lot of disconnected footage that just kind of didn't make any sense. So what I thought was interesting about that video, and I'll try to make this quick, is just that I stitched it together with 8mm footage that I had. Some of it shot at airports, some of it shot just in the city.
Yeah.
Some of it shot, it's me going to we went to a drive-in theater to go see Back to the Future, and for whatever reason, they thought my Celica was a DeLorean. They let me in for free. And then there's an actual DeLorean in there. I had the opportunity to correct them and I just did not take it. So
yeah, exactly.
But the guy who ran the theater was so cool. I got Super 8 footage of the interior of their projection room and then the whole thing. But none of this makes any sense with an aviation video. But the idea was just that you live to fly another day. You get to go do all these other things that are immensely enjoyable in your life. Like running around with a Super 8, going to a drive-in movie or whatever. And so that's why I put all that footage in there. And the back end of the footage on that video is all 8mm footage that my father shot from a C-123. And there's some really cool formation footage and stuff that he shot that's bonkers to me that I even have it. I can't. It's just a precious few seconds, really, or a minute or something of footage of an air show, and then it ends with a shot of my older brother when he was a little boy before I was born.
Wow.
So
that's really cool.
But anyway, so yeah, the art of not flying. Celebrate your no-goes and your accomplished decisions to not fly. It's a really fantastic thing.
It is. And
Mike Patey, back in a safety conference a year ago, I'm not going to put it in the show notes, but it's this 2-hour-long thing, and in there he talks about when they fly up in the mountains and celebrate people who choose not to land, who choose not to go into a dangerous or difficult runway.
Yeah,
that it's not just, oh, you didn't land, that's fine. It's, hey, congrats, good job making that decision.
Yep.
And we can think about logging 0 hours in the same way. Lionel in the comments said that could be an award at the fly-in, 0 hours logged. The problem is that Mark Wendell Geek would win that award every time. So we can't do that. It's a great idea, but he's just set up to win it. Yeah.
He'll win it every time.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap this one up. Again, email us at midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com. Give us your suggestions on where we should meet up March, April timeframe. We love hearing from you. Any feedback you can provide would be fantastic. And with that, I don't have any wit or wisdom tonight, as I've had my fair share of Macallan. But we will go ahead and ask you to leave us a 5-star review. We haven't had very many reviews lately, and we're asking you to maybe take a little bit of action in this season of giving and give us a 5-star review. Anything else, gentlemen, for the good of the order?
No, sir.
Well, catch us Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern at youtube.com/@midlifepilotpodcast. And we appreciate everybody in the chat joining us tonight. It was a great interaction. Thank you very much. And signing off, episode 105 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast. Good night, everybody.